At last, a relaxer system that gives back what other relaxers take away. Body, softness, shine. The optimum conditioning relaxer system with our exclusive Synthesis 3. A total treatment that relaxes hair silky straight for body like never before. Highlights from root to end. Maximum volume and movement. Ask your professional stylist for optimum conditioning by Soft Sheen.
In today's business and financial news, we're going to discuss Edward Gardner and Soft Sheen. Edward Gardner, he was the co-founder of Soft Sheen Products, and he was a titan in business and philanthropy. He passed away recently at the age of 98. And really, if you grew up at a certain time in the African American community, you knew that his products were very aspirational. And the work that he did in being a co-founder and an entrepreneur and a leader in the business world was very aspirational as well. Pause. In 2021, Black Enterprise had a list of influential Black entrepreneurs, and Edward Gardner made this list. The section concerning Edward was called Soft Sheen's Triangle of Trade, and this is the summary that they wrote about Edward Gardner. As a founder of Chicago-based Soft Sheen in 1964, Gardner and his wife, Betty Ann, operated their fledgling enterprise in the basement of their home. Over 2 decades, they built it into a mammoth Black-owned hair care manufacturer with global reach. With the introduction of the Carefree Curl line to both professional beauticians and retailers, Soft Sheen realized phenomenal growth as it capitalized on the popular Jerry curl trend of the 1980s.
Professional hairstylist or Soft Sheen's Carefree Curl.
Sales grew from $500,000 in 1979 to $55 million in 1983, catapulting Soft Sheen to number 8 on the BE 100 list. By 1989, when it was named Black Enterprise Company of the Year, Soft Sheen had acquired a London-based distributor and set up a worldwide network for customers in 66 countries to purchase its line of more than 150 products. So many individuals used his products and still use them to this day. CBS News reports that Edward Gardner, co-founder of Soft Sheen Products and titan in business and philanthropy, he passed away at 98. It says many are mourning the loss of Edward Gardner. Gardner was the co-founder of the hair company Soft Sheen Products, Inc., and he died on Monday, surrounded by family. Gardner and his wife, Betty Ann, founded Soft Sheen in 1964. The company grew exponentially and was the largest Black-owned beauty company in the U.S. by the late 1980s. So today it seems rather commonplace that we have various Black-owned beauty products and businesses, various companies, but back then it probably wasn't as commonplace, and he really was a leader when it comes to that industry. Gardner was also known for his dedication to the arts. He and his wife spearheaded the development of the New Regal Theater at 1641 East 79th Street. The theater drew acts from Gladys Knight to Tyler Perry in its years of operation.
I grew up in the neighborhood. I think there were 1 or 2 functions I was able to attend. One of them was a concert by the Chicago Sinfonietta, I think. And even though it was only 1 or 2 times I came into the actual property, the image of the lobby was just always burned forever into my brain because it's so beautiful. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. Well, I know that it was built in 1927 and that it's, if not the favorite of John Everson, one of his favorite atmospheric theaters, and the architecture style, the Moorish revivalist style you see in here was influenced by a Persian incense burner that he found at an antique store in the French Quarter in New Orleans. There are 2,250 seats with 1,125 on each level. So the floor and the balcony both have the same number of seats, which is actually pretty rare for a theater of this caliber. Sometimes you've got more seats in one area than the other.
Gardner also helped create the nonprofit Black on Black Love, which addressed violence. In addition, Gardner used soft sheen advertising and communication resources, leveraging an effort to raise $300,000 in staff to mount a campaign that registered more than 200,000 voters 40 years ago. That effort led to the election of Mayor Harold Washington as Chicago's first Black mayor.
You want Harold? Well, here's Harold.
I believe that was back in the early 80s. Let me take a look real quick to see when Harold was the mayor. Yep, he was the mayor of Chicago from 1983 to 1987. Harold Lee Washington, very influential here within Chicago politics.
Harold Washington, Chicago's 51st mayor and the city's first black mayor, had a way with words.
I am not a combative person by nature, but I have the courage of my convictions, and I cannot shrink from necessary contests.
His formal remarks, his ad-libs, his quips.
I'm here to tell you tonight, the state of the city is real good.
Inspired many, including a future United States president, reflecting the mayor's emphasis on racial justice and inclusion.
At the age of 87 in 2012, Gardner organized more than 1,000 demonstrators on a march to protest a lack of Black workers at a South Side construction site. Gardner was also a co-founder of the Chicago Bulls and a board member at Chicago United and the Chicago Urban League. He was born February 15, 1925, to Frank and Eva Gardner in the West Chesterfield neighborhood. Gardner graduated from Fenger High School and Chicago Teachers College, now Chicago State University, and received master's degrees from the University of Chicago. He was also a sergeant in the U.S. Army during World War II, so very accomplished outside of the business world as well. He was my father, my hero, my teacher, Gardner's son Gary said in a news release. He taught me how to engage people with humanity and humility. Gardner's daughter, Terry, added, "My father saw the untapped potential of his community. He believed that with access to opportunity, hard work, a quality education, and safe neighborhoods, there is nothing we can't achieve." So that was information from a local article for CBS News. There's also a biography of Gardner online. It reads, personal care entrepreneur Edward George Gardner was born February 25th, 1925 in Chicago, Illinois, to Frank and Eva Gardner. Following service in the U.S. Army during World War II, Gardner returned to Chicago and enrolled in Chicago Teachers College, where he received his BA degree in the 1940s. He went on to also pursue his MA degree from the University of Chicago. Gardner worked for 14 years as an instructor and school administrator for the Chicago Public Schools while simultaneously working part-time as a Black hair care sales representative. Learning of the dissatisfaction of many African American consumers and hair care professionals, he and his wife Betty Ann launched Soft Sheen products from their basement in 1964. Isn't this the classic American entrepreneur story, where you launch the business from your home and it grows into what it becomes? With brands such as Optimum and Carefree Curl, Soft Sheen products grew into a multi-million-dollar enterprise employing more than 400 people. The company also developed gradually, exporting its products to Canada, the Caribbean, and West Africa. In 1998, Gardner sold Soft Sheen products to L'Oreal and passed the day-to-day operations of Soft Sheen onto his children. Gardner has also been committed to service in the Chicago community. He owned the New Regal Theater and served as president of Garden Investment Partners, In addition, Gardner received credit for helping register over 250,000 people for Mayor Harold Washington's election in 1983. He served as a board member of the Chicago Urban League and was invited by President Bill Clinton to attend an economic summit in Little Rock, Arkansas, to discuss the impact corporations can have on urban employment. Soft Sheens honors a Company of the Year award from Black Enterprise magazine and a 1999 Pyramid Award. So just a brief highlight concerning Edward Gardner and his many years, both as a successful businessman, as a veteran, as a leader in the global economy, but also here within Chicago. Someone who lived a very long life and who passed away recently at the age of 98. Also, let's note some of the sentiment that we can see online concerning Mr. Gardner. Someone wrote, "The city of Chicago and its African American community in particular have lost a giant as Mr. Edward Gardner has joined the ancestors. Through highly successful business leadership on a global scale and activism and philanthropy, here at home, he and his spouse, Mrs. Betty Ann Gardner, left an indelible mark on this city and their beloved South Side." Another wrote, "Mr. Gardner was always generous with his time, kind and willing to listen in our brief but meaningful conversations when I was in high school. A rare and accomplished Black entrepreneur." Someone else said, "Thank you, Mr. Gardner, for all of your hard work for Chicago." Another noted, "Mr. Gardner was truly a giant to be revered and emulated. His excellence in family, business, community, and politics is legendary, and he was a genuinely nice person. He has many major accomplishments, but perhaps his greatest accomplishment was the pivotal role he played in the election of Chicago's first African-American mayor, Harold Washington." Someone noted, "Mr. Gardner had me working on the Regal Theater and was always a pretty cool guy to speak with. My parents worked for Soft Sheen for over 20 years. He believed in family so much he hired employees, kids during the summer, and had company picnics with families. Mr. Gardner was an amazing person and a very good businessman. I had the pleasure to work with him and his family as their banker. He built an incredible legacy." Mr. Gardner was a tremendous human asset. Many don't know he served as principal at Beethoven Elementary School, which then mostly catered to children living in the Robert Taylor Home Projects. As one of his teachers, he encouraged my mother to pursue an MSW and switch her focus to social work. In the earliest days, Mr. Gardner embraced the National Black MBA Association Chicago chapter and encouraged us to talk more about entrepreneurship as a way to go forward. He was quite the gentleman, the motivator, and the success. Mr. Gardner was a true inspiration to entrepreneurs and business professionals alike. A trailblazer, a community giant, a great man.